The notion that somehow or other the Iranians, who have existed for 3,000 years, are going to commit public suicide the first moment they have a bomb is really ludicrous.
Perhaps we're ending the show with the most important question of the night. Is Israel planning to strike Iran's nuclear facilities in the near future? U.S. officials now believe the chances are greater than they were or have been in some time. According to the Washington Post's David Ignatius, who was really on top of the situation, Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta believes there is a strong likelihood Israel will launch an attack as soon as this spring. And the news comes as Israeli leaders, in some of their bluntest language so far, said the window of opportunity to stop or slow down Iran's nuclear program is narrowing. In other words, getting short. And what would a strike on Iran mean for the U.S. and the rest of the world? And how concerned are leaders here in America about the possibility of Israel attacking Iran? Richard Engels, the chief foreign correspondent for NBC News. He's in Tel Aviv. And Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski is the former national security advisor to President Carter. He has a new fascinating book called Strategic Vision. There it is. It's about the United States' role in the world and whether our power and our influence is on the decline or not. We're going to talk to him about that. Let's start with the situation out there. What's new, Richard, about the prospects for an attack by Israel on the Iranian nuclear program, their facilities?
What's new is that the Israelis do feel that their window to operate is shrinking, that the Iranians are working on their program, making progress every month, and that they could reach a point of no return, a point at which it is no longer possible for an Israeli airstrike, missile strike to slow down the program in any kind of effective way. And according to what is playing out right now, it seems that Washington, particularly Defense Secretary Panetta, saw this as a real possibility and took this very unusual step of making public statements through David Ignatius to try and signal to the Israelis, don't do this. Allow the sanctions more time to play out. Don't break up a consensus around the world that has been formed against Iran, and give this more time. And we're seeing some pushback from the Israelis saying, yes, fine, we will give it a little more time, but we can't wait forever.
Second question, is Israel concerned not that they're going to build a launching platform or a missile system, but that they're just afraid that they can build a bomb itself and can deliver it by all kinds of means?
Israel thinks, according to officials we've interviewed here, that it would take Iran a year to have some sort of weapon, 2 to 3 years to have an arsenal, and they're worried that once Iran has a weapon, that calculations, even domestic calculations in this country, will be significantly different. Will Israel be able to operate as freely in Gaza? Will it be limited by Hezbollah, knowing that Iran has even a rudimentary style weapon, one that is no longer able to to reach? So Israel doesn't want to get to that point where it is always have to worry about Iran having a weapon, this threat hanging over it. Iran, of course, says that its weapons program is peaceful, that no decision has been taken to actually create a weapon, and points out that Israel, in fact, does have nuclear weapons.
Oh, we know that, yeah. Let me go to Dr. Brzezinski about the strategic question. Is there something that could be worse than Iran having a weapon? In other words, when you make the calculations on consequences, is there any way you would decide, well, all right, we can live with a nuclear weapon in the hands of the Iranians because it's better than what?
Well, the answer is very simple. War. Because it's very easy to start a war. It's very difficult to end it on your own terms, and it tends to produce unforeseen consequences. Look, the Israelis have a so-called nuclear deterrent. We have an enormous nuclear deterrent. Gary Sick, who is a major significant expert on Iran, has produced a list since 1994 of annual Israeli predictions that next year Iran will have the bomb. So I think we can take their predictions with a little bit of caution. Moreover, their public opinion is not for a strike.
I know.
The majority of American Jews are not for a strike. They're being sensible. I think we're dealing here with a right-wing government with rather one-sided notions of what security is, and perhaps with a somewhat irresponsible attitude about the consequences of their actions for us. Because the Iranians, if attacked, are not going to retaliate effectively against Israel because they cannot. They'll retaliate against us because they'll see us as the sponsors. So our troops in Afghanistan will pay the price, and our disengagement may become very difficult to pursue. We'll have a mess in Iraq again. There could be difficulties in the Persian Gulf. The price of oil could go up. The global economy could be hurt. American taxpayers will be paying $5 per gallon. The consequences for us could be extremely serious.
But Dr. Brzezinski, can Israel survive if it's known by its own people and perhaps future immigrants to Israel that they're going into a country that's under basically a firing zone from Iran, that any moment one of the mullahs could decide to attack, maybe irrationally?
Look, we lived in that situation.
No, but irrationally.
But wait, we lived in that situation for several decades with an enemy who could wipe out much of America in a few minutes. They don't have the bomb yet. We're negotiating with them. I think part of the Israeli concerns is that we may make an arrangement with the Iranians that doesn't humiliate them and doesn't force them to capitulate totally.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Richard Engel, hang on there. Dr. Brzezinski staying with us. You're watching Hardball, only on MSNBC. We're back. Let's go back over to Tel Aviv and NBC's chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel. We have joining us, of course, Zbigniew Brzezinski, who's author of the new book, Strategic Vision. Richard, this question, we were just talking to Dr. Brzezinski. What is Israeli public opinion? Where is it on whether to strike or not to strike Iran and its nuclear facilities?
Israelis are divided on this. It's not that everyone in this country is clamoring for a military action. I was in an Israeli home today. People were cleaning out their bomb shelter, making sure that it's ready, that the gas masks are available and in working order. And I spoke to the owner of the house, and he was there with his children, and he doesn't think it's a good idea, that there are too many unknown consequences, and that even if Israel or Iran were to get a nuclear weapon, what is it going to do with it? Would it fire it onto Israel? Iran would cease to exist a short while later. There's also a big debate within the Israeli intelligence community about whether this threat is really as high as people think it is, with the top political leaders focused on Iran, but the cadre in the Israeli intelligence services, the rank and file, saying the real threat comes from the neighbors, specifically Egypt and potential future problems in Jordan.
Okay, let's talk U.S. policy. We're talking Israel policy. What about you? What's in U.S. interest?
I think in the U.S. interest, it is absolutely imperative that Israel be secure, but in a Middle East which is not at war. And we can accomplish that. We can, first of all, issue a public statement that any threat by Iran against any state in the Middle East will be viewed as a threat against us. That in itself would be a very major deterrent. And I think we can at the same time continue negotiating with the Iranians, perhaps about some arrangement in which they'll continue their nuclear program, but under effective international inspection. And some progress is moving in that direction.
How do you save their pride?
Well, by agreeing to them having a nuclear program, and perhaps by
It's not weaponized.
It's not weaponized. The enrichment is not up to a certain level that it really represents a danger, but it is.
Okay, what does Israel get out of that deal? Do they get a year or 2 or 3 years of safety?
Look, if they have a guarantee if they have a guarantee from the United States, they have as much safety as Western Europe, or as Japan, or as South Korea. I think we can do it, but we have to be forthright. And our president and our Secretary of Defense also have to speak forthrightly about this and make it clear we don't want that war. It's in nobody's interest.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard Engel over in Tel Aviv, as always, one of the great correspondents of our time. And Dr. Brzezinski, so much. Your book's called Strategic Vision. And that's Hardball for now. Thanks for being with us. Politics.